yourself. So my question is, introduce yourself in one line, one sentence. And then the second question is, if you were an animal, what animal would you be and why?
Good morning. Good morning. So in case you're sending me money, okay, or you're writing a check on my name, you can use Max Miller or Ra. But if we do not know each other like that, call me Maxi Daniel all day. Sawa? Yes, so yeah, my name is Maxi Daniel. I am an artist. I am an event organizer, human rights defender, philanthropist, CEO, and many other things that we know as we go by. Sawa? All right, that's it. If I was an animal, I would be a cow and be placed specifically in India so that I can be worshipped.
Saseni,
Poa sana.
habari yanyu? Mko poa lakini? Kwa majina ni Stella Maris Ndenya. Natoka Mukuru. Mi ni member of Mothers of Victims and Survivors Network, ambayo tuko pale Kariobangi. Ofisi yetu iko Kariobangi. Mimi kama ningekuwa mnyama ningependa nikue wenyewe kama kinyonga tu, juu wenyewe hii serikali yetu jo kikiumana pande hii najibandilisha, kikiumana pande hii najibandilisha.
Allow me to greet you a revolutionary greeting. Comrades power. Now when I say people power, just tell me higher power. People power.
Higher power.
Higher power.
People power.
My name is Musila John Muisio. And of course the MC was very keen not to butcher it. The Muisio with an I for identity. I'm a human rights defender. I now serve with Action Aid as a social movement inspirator, where I support human rights defenders and social movements to continue the work of social accountability across the country. And I'm excited to be here. If I was to be an animal, I would definitely be a cat. And a cat for curiosity and reaction time. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Okay, just a few people waved. Thank you. Oh, yes, thank you. Now the vibe is vibing. My name is Joy Gitao. I am a Kenyan, very passionate Kenyan. And I happen to be a lawyer and a peace builder. And I work with an organization called Amani Communities Africa. I'm currently serving as the executive director. And what else? I think that's for the one-line introduction. Alafu hiyo ingine, animal. If I was to be an animal, I would love to be an elephant. I'd love to be an elephant. I think they are such gentle giants. They kind of mind their own business. They're just there, but they have power like you have never seen. Yeah, but they're very gentle. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Interesting. Elephant, we have the cat, we have, I believe it was a chameleon, and then we have cow, specifically in India. Yes, to be worshipped. Okay. This is going to be an interesting discussion. Yeah, so I want to jump very quickly into, the topic of today, which is, how shadow to strength and the conversation on police brutality and activism. But I'm going to direct this one straight to Mr. Muisio. Yeah. So let me see if you guys know this. Hey, you in that blue uniform.
If I have wronged you, I will reform. Ryan Aliyah.
Amazing. Yeah. So we have seen artistic pieces like this one being used from very long time ago to date to enable us people who listen to music and Kenyans and people who enjoy art as a whole to also learn a few things about the societies that we live in. And my question to you would be, if we were to understand what inspired you to use your craft, I believe you started off as an artist and then proceeded to the community mobilizing work that you do at Action Aid. What inspired you to use your craft, as a tool for human rights advocacy?
All right, thank you very much for that particular question. And I hope I will give a very short brief on how I got into that space, and hopefully it will be insightful. I was born and raised in the urban informal settlements of Kibera, call them slums. And growing there, would say quite confidently that we've seen every form of injustice to the people of Kibra when it comes to housing, comes to access to necessary infrastructure, and all that. We've seen it all. And I remember I went to a primary school that was called Mashimoni Squatters. And I want you to connect to these names as I say them. So I went to a school inaitwa Shimo, na ilikuwa Shimo ya squatters. And you'd ask why, because then there was not enough public schools. But what really got me anged or inged in the using of arts was after the post-election violence. And we saw the atrocities that actually were on Kenyan people. And Kibera was on the map for having received every form of violence from the police. And there was this performing arts group. They didn't use music. They used traditional dance, acting, and poetry. So you'd be walking in the slums in Kibera and you find people along the railway line and they are performing. There would be somewhere in the Kijiji, not formal, anywhere, participatory educative theater, and they would be performing. And I would love to see them every other time. So I would be walking aimlessly, if to say, so that I can just bump into them and watch a free show. I didn't need to pay. And this particular thing really connected with me. And looking on the other end, because of the demonstrations that followed over the years, the demonstration towards the new constitution and seeing how the police were using force, I felt truly for me then I would not go into that side of, say, activism, where I have to directly confront people, because it's very reactionary and could lead to a lot of injuries and even death, because we've seen the number of deaths we've lost along the way. So I continue to be inspired by this particular group. And then once they advertised for auditions, then I just told myself, I've been in drama in school, primary and secondary, why not try this? So I went in, and that is how then I got into poetry as well, got into acting, I got into dancing, which I don't like to death, and all that. So why then I continue to do it is because, like you've even mentioned from that song, art as just a way of speaking to us very softly, but invoke the most of emotions in us. And through the work we've been doing, we've realized that consuming art, it becomes very easy than even telling people too much. They'll just listen to songs and then they will tell themselves too much. And that for me is the inspiration that has kept me going. But there's one guy that, again, because art can at times be confused to only music and that, who's done a lot of work over the years. We lost him, I think 2 years ago. He was from Kibera. After the post-election violence, he went round, and most of you must have seen it, and he was just doing a small art, a circle, a line, which is, I think, a T, and then below it, peace wanted alive. If you haven't seen it, maybe you are not in Nairobi. That in itself kept speaking to people. That yes, we can be tired with what is happening in the society. Yes, we can be so art by the police, so art by, say, our leaders, but then we just need to keep peace alive. We need to fight for justice, yes, but we don't need to keep losing people. We need to fight for justice. We don't have to lose our country. And peace was wanted. And that in itself has led to a lot of people reflecting and seeing into creative ways then of using tools such as art to continue activism. And I think that responds to the question. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So thank you so much, Musila. If you look at our panel, ladies and gentlemen, you'll realize that Musila is speaking, he has given us an elaboration on his journey as first an artist and then his journey into choosing the kind of activism that he's going to be having. On this end, you'll realize later on, as she also introduced herself, we have somebody in legal. Yeah, and then we have somebody who has experienced, police brutality firsthand. And then we have somebody speaking for the civil society. So starting from where you are, Musila, I think the follow-up question I'd ask you is, all these things you have mentioned considered, how do you see that activism is shifting perceptions on the whole idea of police brutality as we know it today?
I would say it is shifting perception in this way. One, people now have an awareness of things that are right and wrong. And people would include the police. That the police will do whatever they are doing, but later on they would be seated in their sitting room and listening to somebody telling them what you're doing is wrong, and they can't do anything to this person. They can't touch him, they don't know him, but this person is just speaking to them. Somebody is telling them, you can act right, and they are not even there. So in a sense, the police continuously reflect on how they handle people, how they handle the common citizenry, and even find a better way. However, we still know there is a small struggle with, say, the curriculum, the lawyer will speak to that, of the police, shifting from a force to a service. And we are not very sure what is trained at Kiganjo, but we would continue to tell them the Constitution shifting you from a force to a service envisioned that you're going to serve these people and not use force to actually show them direction or to quill their power and their voice. So slowly and slowly, arts is actually telling them the right things. And as a person from Kibera who interacts very closely with the police station, I would say if I would compare 5-10 years ago to now, the police are open to receiving people at the police station to just have conversation, not necessarily to report cases. They just come and tell us, oh, this is how my society looks, this is how my community looks. And that will say, if it is not taught at school, if we are not coming to the street to say this, then they are listening at it from somewhere. And basically it could be from radio, from TV, and slowly then they are shifting. It could be very slow, but pole, their attitudes towards how they treat people, how they interact with the common citizen is slowly and surely shifting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I won't mention your name for fear of butchering it, but I found something that we could relate. You hate dancing. I don't hate dancing, but I can't dance. I have 2 left feet. I step on myself on the dance floor, and I dance like a newborn calf. So I step on myself and I jump. So I think I'm going to look for you after this and we have a conversation around that. Maybe you can teach me a trick or two. But one thing that came out from your conversation is there's something I believe in is art as a tool of war. So how we're using art to fight injustice, and I feel like that is very, very important. I like what you're doing, so thank you for that. But maybe to the team here, what happens when you've been there, you've spoken out, you've had someone you love speak out, you've had someone go to the street, someone speak against injustice, and then like we witnessed in June or July, the person turns into a victim. Like we've witnessed, there's a lot of police brutality, there's a lot of killings, so many people ended up in different spaces. And we've had instances where your child leaves home, and then just like that, the loved one won't come home in the evening. And maybe we invited someone who has walked that journey. So I'm going to invite Stella Marie to share her journey for justice. She is a victim. She's a mother of a victim, a 17-year-old child who was brutally murdered by the police. So she's going to share her journey. Karibu sana Stella.
Asante. Okay, mi nikianza nimewaambia mi ni Stella Maris Ndenya, natoka Mukuru kwa Ruben. Mnamo 2016 mwezi wa 4 tarehe 19, kijana wangu aliyekuwa anaitwa Francis Kioko Musyoka, 17 years, form 3, aliuliwa na polisi saa 11 ya jioni. Na hakuwa peke yake, walikuwa vijana 8 ambao walikuwa wamekaa kwa mkutano ya garbage collection. Wakaitaniwa na one of village elder. So ile kitu hakujua ni kana kwamba anaitania hawa wetu na wake bado wako hapo. Kijana wake ndiye alikuwa wa 8. So kutoka hapo imekuwa ni kazi ngumu na challenge mingi sana za maisha. Juu unapata sisi kama wazazi, wale watoto wao wamepotea, wale tumeathirika kwa mikono ya polisi ambao wanatumia nguvu kuliko kiasi, kupita kiasi. Tunaumia sana. Kitu ya kwanza, umepata kidonda ya maisha yenye haitawahi pona. Unakaa ukilala ukifikiria, yani unaona hata hakuna haja ya mama kuwa na watoto. Juu unawalea vizuri, ukiteseka, unafulia watu. Saa ile mtoto anakuja kutokea, mtoto anaenda hivyo. So since 2016, 2017 tuliweza kusaidiwa na IMLU. Tukapata hiyo results ya postmortem. Tukapewa counseling, organizations zilijitokeza mingi. Lakini ile challenge imekuwa ni hii hali ya kutafuta hiyo justice. Hiyo miaka yote kesi iko kotini. Hakuna askari hata mmoja aliwaishikwa. Ukitembea unapatana na wao. Inafika to an extent wanakutishia maisha, wakijua kuna kesi iko kotini. Na mimi nilisimama na kusema sitanyamaza na sitanyamazishwa na mtu yoyote. Mtoto wangu ameenda, nilikuwa na vijana 2 na msichana 1. Nimebaki na msichana na kijana. Je, hawa wengine wamebaki, nikinyamaza wataenda wapi? Si watauliwa? Hapo ndio tuliamua kushikana sisi kama wamama wale tumepoteza watoto, na tukaform network ambayo inajiita Mothers of Victims and Survivors Network. Tunatembea pamoja, tunashikiliana, tunashare, yani tunaongeleshana. Juu kila mtu uko na yeye kwa hiyo network amefaa ile kiatu umefaa. At least unasikia uko na mahali, uko na dada mahali ama ndugu. Pia hiyo network yetu kuna vijana wale wamesurvive bullet, tumechanganyikana, ndio unasikia kuna survivors. Tunaendelea kusonga, tunasukumana, wakati kuna kesi kotini tunapeana solidarity, tunatembea pamoja. So ile kitu ningewaomba nyinyi kama wasichana wandogo, wa mama wenzangu na pia vijana, msikubali kunyamazishwa. Tunafaa kusimama kutetea haki. Katiba yetu inatupea ruhusa, na katika katiba yetu tunajua hakuna uwa inafaa kuenda bure. Kila mtu ako na haki ya kuishi. Na kama kuna mwenye amekosa, kuna jela. Kijana ashikwe apelekwe jela, mama atembeange kwenda kumuona. Mi wa leo niwa ninasema mtoto wangu angeshikwa, at least naona tunatoka. Naenda pale na muona. Asavio nini yake, kifungo yake, ningekuwa nasikia vizuri. But ile kitu naona, hii Kenya yetu kupata haki ni ngumu. na tutaifuatilia mpaka mwisho. Hakuna mahali tutasimama, tutaendelea na kusonga tukitafuta haki. Hata kama huwa tunajua nini, justice delayed is justice denied. Hatutaachilia, tutafuata. Beta tufuate mpaka mwisho, ikuje iishe, tuambiwe mtoto alikuwa mwizi ama hakukuwa mwizi. Na ile kitu ningeomba, yani serikali ya Kenya wanjiweke kwa zile viatu sisi kama wamama wetu tunavaa. Usiku na mchana unatembea ulali. Saa zingine unaona kijana wa ile lika ya mtoto wako. By the way, kama sijaenda counseling nilikuwa nafuata hata mtoto nikidhani ni yeye. Hiyo kitu kutoka ni ngumu sana. Inakaanga kama kidonda ya njana. Ni sisi wenyewe tusimame, tusinyamaze, usikumbali kunyamazishwa na mtu. Sisi kama Mothers of Victims and Survivors Network, hakuna demonstration watu endi. Hata hii ilikuwa ya mwezi wa 7. Nakumbuka kuna boy aliangushwa mbele yangu. Na hiyo kitu wanga inaniuma tu sana. Juu watu wanatetea rights zao, hawana kitu, hawako harmed, na wanauliwa bure. Unapata vijana wanapotezwa. Na ni vibaya tu sana. Ile kitu ingine ningeomba kwa yule mwenye anasikia, ni kesi ikienda pale kotini, angalau hiyo iweze kuharakishwa. Kosi unapata mother anafuata hiyo justice mpaka anakufa, anaacha kesi ikiendelea. Yani court process imekuwa tu iko down tu sana. Na pia wale watu wameadhirika wakati court hiyo kesi zinaendelea, wanapaa wapewe ulinzi. Juu kama sisi watu tunatoka tunaenda Makandara, unapatana na huyo askari hapo, haujui next itakuwa nini, utapotezwa ama itakuwa aje. Ni hayo tu.
Asante sana, and thank you for the courage kukuja kushare story yako. I think it takes a lot of ni nguvu nyingi sana kutokea mbele ya watu na kuongelea kitu ambayo kimekuumiza wewe kama mzazi. Kuna kitu umesema, sitasimama maovu ya kitawala. Nilikuwa naambia Robin na part of the people wenye wako hapa hivi that I am a human rights defender, and that is a sentence that I listened to until I became a human rights defender. I played It's Giuliani, hopefully. I played Giuliani on repeat until that thing entered my brain. And I said, no, I'm not going to stand. And when I listened to your story, it is your determination to not let justice slide that has really moved me. I love that you're calling out people, even in situations where you're being threatened. So thank you so much for that. I think also just listening to you and listening to a lot of how you've been operating with the police and with people coming up. When you mentioned that going to court and unagojewa hapo nje, I think that scared me a little bit. Nilikuwa like, hey, sijui kama naweza rudi hiyo kotini. But this has been very, very common. We've also seen this with CSOs. Watu tuliambiwa maandamano inalidiwa na nani? If you were in Kenya at that time, who are the people behind the protests? Hamkuwa Kenya? Mulisikia. Ilianza na Illuminati, ikaenda kwa nani? Kwa Ford Foundation, ikaenda kwa nani? Kwa several other people. But the CSOs were really targeted. Ama ni mimi nilikuwa sikupata. So many CSOs. Part of my other job is I work in Uganda, and we rescue human rights defenders. And part of the team that came from Kenya, they were really a huge number that were coming from Kenya, from civil society, people on the grassroots. And one of the most powerful statements that came from this protest is, when we lose our fear, come on guys, when you have fear, when we lose our fear,
they lose their power.
When we lose our fear, they lose their power. And that is one of the boldest statements that I've ever heard. And we've been in a journey with different CSOs, like Martha mentioned. And so one of the CSOs that we've really worked with is Talanta Africa, represented by Max Mill. I'm really afraid of butchering her name. And they work a lot with the marginalized community. And so we just wanted to analyze, is the situation different for the marginalized communities? Do they face different challenges when it comes to police brutality? Are we on the same pedestal? And so I would want Maxine to share her journey through fighting for justice, and also just give, because Talanta Africa is very heavily relying on art, and just give us like a synopsis of how they have used art at the grassroots to defend human rights. So Maxine, karibu.
Nani mdosi? Nataka kufaya umse. Aya, jina ni Maxi Daniel. Sawa? Maxi?
Daniel.
Yes, brand muhimu. Sawa? So Maxi Daniel is an artist, and I work with Talanta Africa as the programs manager. Na kaa kuna kitu moja uni piss off sana ni people who violate human rights. And I'm not talking about large scale, ati from uko, sijui, gava, sijui kina nani, inaanza na kwa ground. The number of times even us as a people violate each other. Sawa sawa. So that is my introduction, all right? So now looking at Talanta Africa, we work in Kisumu in Western Kenya. Western Kenya in several counties and sub-counties, but we are based in Kisumu County that has 7 sub-counties. Sawa sawa. Hizo vitu nimesema mko zile za rada. Iko hivyo. So when you're looking at how then police brutality in affect minority, and by minority in this case, I don't know if I'm allowed to use the words that, because I'm very open to using the words that I should. When we're talking about minority, I'll be talking about the sexual minority, or the persons that are largely known as the LGBTQ plus community. And for us, we have been in very interesting space, right? And every time tumejipata kwa either maandamano ama tumejipata kwa spaces yenye has a lot of people, there is a different type of targeting. It's no longer just about you are in a protest. It's no longer just about you are marching. Now it's about, oh, nyi ndio wale wasi. You get? So the story shifts from you're a young person, the story shifts from you're a young woman, the story just shifts completely to, ni wale wase wenye. The men at home will say wanatukulianga madem, mama wanatukulianga maboy, something like that. Yeah? And so you realize that now we are fighting a different type of battle. Right? And so when you're being targeted, it's no longer just targeting because of the work that you do. Yeah. So ours is just to create, to ensure that we go into the deepest parts of the different areas that we work in. And we try to use art, we do use art and culture and our social media as well to look into the issues of different individuals in whichever shape, size, color, design that they come in. So it becomes easier for people to understand. And we all know art is a conversation starter. Sindio? So we know that art is a conversation starter. And when we get into the community, we are actually able to have this conversation with the people after we've given them performances. For example, I'm a spoken word artist and an actor. So if we want to get people to get into the conversation, I will probably start with a piece and then tutaendelea from there. Look at you looking at me as if. But yes, so we will, we pick it up from there. Of course, there are other different forms of art also that we use, film, poetry, music, dance, and different other forms that we use. And there's something that you mentioned about during the protests or during any form of, or especially the Gen Z protests or the anti-finance bill protests, the CSOs or the NGOs suffered to some extent. Yes, we did. Because there were hands pointing at us left, right, and center, asking and questioning, how much are we spending in in not defending the rights that we should be defending, right? Or how much money did we spend to fund, the Gen Z protests, because we were being referred to as funders at that particular time. Then when you come and sit down and you realize that we were actually not even funding anyone. The protests were organic. The protests were like things were happening on their own. At some point, even us, we sat down. We were like, wait, okay, enyewe kusema ukweli. The government is asking, we need a leader so that we can talk to you. Remember that time? When they ask for a leader that they want to have conversations with, as if they actually can. Anyway, before we get there, so you realize that there was a lot of pointing of fingers, especially in the CSO, just questioning, how much are you giving to these people? Or which meetings are you having? Or where are you? And at some point we even started being questioned, and they wanted even to take back the licenses that we have to run the various organizations that we're running, because there were questions of, we want to see exactly what your accounts look like, what your work, what you do at your workplaces. And for some of us who do the work that we do, you can't just expose what you do to the government. Si wote tunajua gava venye iko. Kidogo kidogo utataxiwa hadi kubreathe. So it will be very, very, very uncomfortable. But if we are looking at how the CSOs have been affected, I think we have been heavily. And I know most of us had to run out of the country, as you had mentioned. I know most of us had to close down at some point for some months. I know some of us have never recovered to date because some funding were pulled back. There are some funders who said, Niaje, if you're using our money to do this and this and this, give us a year to do due diligence. And 1 year collapses an organization. You can't run if say you did not have like a good sustainability plan, then definitely to some extent you're going to fall. So I hope that answers the question that you asked.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for butchering your name. My sincere apologies. My boss is here. But I like your insights on the CSOs. It's sad that when they couldn't get someone to pin with what they disagreed with, they decided that all Kenyans are worth punishing. I remember one of my favorite quotes, I even stole it and I use it on Twitter, is the rage and courage. I think that is what was driving me during the protests. And I remember also watching, and some kid was saying, it is our anger that is driving us to the streets. Like, that is what is fueling the protest. And yeah, that has been very, very interesting. And so thank you for sharing. And so
Yeah, thank you so much, Maxi Daniel. Yes, Maxi Daniel. We've had a conversation that has gone almost full circle. We have engaged on the starting point of artistic expression and where it meets with activism. We've talked to somebody who has experienced firsthand. We've talked to somebody on like in the gap between the police, the systems, the structures, the frameworks, and us, the citizens, who are supposed to apparently sit pretty and wait to either hear or be told what to do and be quiet when things are going wrong. But I think ultimately we are told by our constitution that we have recourse in the law, that the law is there to protect us, is there to ensure our civil rights and freedoms are heard or are followed to the latter. Which brings us now to you, Joy. There have been cases, for example, in September, we had IPOA summon 50 police officers and commanders over the Gen Z protests. We also have cases, of course, like what we've had from Stella Maris. Recently also, the Security Cabinet Secretary, the then Security Cabinet Secretary, and current Deputy President, Professor Kindiki, in October 7th, 2024, he admitted to the disappearance of 132 youth and the killing of 42 during the protests. So we have on the one hand, somebody who was the head of security admitting to the blatant murder and abduction of young people exercising their right to picket and protest. Then we also have, on the other hand, we have IPOA, I'd like to say, appearing to look like they are doing something about the whole situation. What I'd like you to sort of reduce for us from a very complex legal view is how do cases like the ones Stella Maris has told us, having lagged in court for a considerable amount of time, what are the challenges that you see possibly in your practice or the practice of your colleagues that survivors face in their quest for justice in the legal system? What are the challenges that you see from your standpoint as a lawyer?
Wow, thank you so much, Robin, for that question. It's very sad to hear these things first as a Kenyan, and to see things go the way they are. And yeah, it is indeed very sad. And especially coming from I came with my constitution today, and I think Kenyans now more than ever, especially during this around June, July, when we were having the protests, Kenyans really took keen interest to just even go back to their constitution and ask themselves, what does this document say about me as a Kenyan? Because it looks like everyone else is treating me like a second-class citizen. Yani, it's like there are other higher powers, And I really loved, allow me to start there before I get to answering the question. I really love what our preamble talks about. And I know all of you are now conversant with the preamble. What does it say? It starts with we. We the people of Kenya, We the people of Kenya. That is the preamble. Okay? Acknowledging the supremacy of the Almighty God of all creation, honoring those who heroically struggled to bring freedom and justice to our land, proud of our ethnic culture, religious diversity, determined to live in peace, unity as one indivisible sovereign nation, respectful of the environment which is our heritage, and determined to sustain it for the benefit of the future generations. Committed to nurturing and protecting the well-being of the individual, the family, the community, and the nations. Recognizing the aspirations of all Kenyans for a government based on the essential values of human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, social justice, and rule of law. Exercising our sovereign, inalienable right to determine the form of governance of our country, and having participated fully in the making of this constitution, adopt this constitution. This particular preamble, and it's the beginning of our constitution, really just speaks to who actually has the power. Fellow Kenyans, it is you and I. All Kenyans. Before you even get to any hierarchy of power, serve in any public office, you are first a Kenyan. And I think that is the highest duty that each of us must hold as a citizen in whatever capacity that you serve. Today I'm speaking as a lawyer. In fact, I would have loved to have the uniformed officers in this room. Yeah, because they also are Kenyans, Would like to hear from them as Kenyans first. So I think listening to what we're talking about, the police brutality, the injustices, the human rights violation, is really a show that there is a segment of Kenyans who do not understand the values of this constitution. Yeah. So, on to your question, shida iko wapi? And as a wakili, you're cornered every time. Why what is justice there? Is justice a thing? And sometimes I don't even know the answer myself. Let me just admit it. You know, I used to, before I decided to become a lawyer, when I was growing up, I thought, wow, when I can become a lawyer, I will resolve all the justice issues. Wow. I get into practice, boom. You're like, this is a mess, you know? And I'm thinking it's very sad to see people in court, especially, take so long. One of the challenges, justice is very expensive. Let us start there. How many people in Kenya can actually afford a lawyer? It's expensive. We are basically not affordable, right? And so unless you get the opportunity to be part of, get a lawyer who is willing to offer pro bono services, or get an organization that has pro bono services, lawyers on pro bono, it's very difficult to get legal assistance. Now, if you're a Kenyan and you're going through the justice system, kama una wakili kwanza, it's like you're first disadvantaged from that point. Because as a lawyer, I'm imagining, if I'm called today, my client ako kwa police station. Client ako na advantage ya nitaenda hapo. You know, I will assist them from even that point of arrest. Now, I'm looking at someone who has been ameingizwa kwa Mariamu, sindio? Umeenda ukapelekwa whatever police station after possibly kuzungushwa Nairobi. And you get yourself in a place kidogo ukifungua macho uko sindio, where the remandees are kept. Then you realize, wow, I'm here. Sina wakili, siezi afford wakili. So ni mimi kwenda kujitetea huko. And in fact, they coach each other. Yani even your fellow remandees, mnasaidiananga, nikifika huko niseme nini, you know? And it's very sad because sasa ukifika huko, then you don't have any, but the person who has a lawyer has the opportunity to possibly even have a conversation with at the police station. And this is because, of course, legal assistance is very expensive. And it's not mandatory in all cases for you to be legally represented. Yeah. So that's the first thing I see as a challenge. And the second thing, of course, is our legal system is also quite complicated. Especially a case possibly that involves a law enforcement officer. In a criminal case, for example, because most of these human rights violation cases inakwanga mixed with criminal, it's normally put under the criminal jurisdiction half the times, right? Umeshikwa na makosa, loitering or, you know, looting. Especially, I'm looking at even in the case of a protest. It is mad, your action is mad as a criminal offense, right? So when you go there is normally an investigating officer who's in charge of the case. That is a fellow officer. So I'm thinking, if you have had any human rights violations, already it's an officer now, you're trying to put an officer against maybe now another officer, which is very difficult, right? So there's that intertwining of so you'll find that case could be lagged. Sometimes the lagging could happen because of so many things. You might find in some cases it's pure incompetence of maybe from the part of the prosecution, from the part of the investigating officer. Sometimes the courts are just overwhelmed with these cases. So inaenda, year in, year out. Saa ingine, evidence haijapatikana. Finding the witness hajapatikana. Maybe witness aliogopa ama alifurushwa. And, you know, they are not able to come and testify in court. So those are some of the things. And I think you talked about witness protection. And it's a fact, you know, especially if you're facing this kind of a case. And I'll give a case in point. How many of you have heard of the story of the late Willie Kimani? Willie Kimani was a lawyer. He has been assigned a case. He used to work for IJM and International, I think, Justice Mission. So he's been assigned a case, and it was actually a case where a police officer had, I think, shot and wrongfully arrested. There was some human rights violations he had done to a border rider. IJM is one of the organizations that can give you, say, a pro bono lawyer. Willie Kimani is assigned the case. The case goes on. And because they want to cover up the steps, Willie Kimani and his driver and the client got into the mess and they were killed, unfortunately. This is something that happened in 2016. Na hii ni kesi that involves even a lawyer. Until last year, 2023, is when the sentence was given. The conviction was given in 2022, but the sentence was given in 2023. So you can imagine how long it has taken, right? And he himself, who was trying to resolve an issue of somebody who was a victim of, police violence, became a victim himself, and unfortunately he did not even live to see the end, and he was killed in such a gruesome way. So that is just one of the so many stories that, create that challenge, and it shows you that we really have a flawed system where something is terribly not working, right? So those are among the challenges that are there. Of course, corruption and impunity is another thing. Yeah, unfortunately, we are still grappling with corruption as a nation, where even maybe from the police station, things just, money exchanges hands, If you happen to know the who's of the who's, you can ponyoka utoke, but how many Kenyans know who's of the who's? Me, the person I know is my neighbor. You know what I mean? So it's unfortunate. And I hope that this is something, so these are things that are endemic, like they are so rooted in our culture. It really needs just a culture shift from I don't know where. Yeah. There's also lack of awareness of human rights. But I say this loosely because sometimes I could know my human rights. I don't see myself narrating them to a police officer for real. Even as a lawyer, maybe I'm arrested for, maybe even if it's a traffic offense, nianze kumsomea, nakwambia nitaingizwa ndani very fast, So, but it helps to be aware of what needs to happen at what point. And I encourage everyone to make your constitution your friend. It has the rights of an arrested person. Yes, they may be violated, but it's important for you to also know this has been violated. I was supposed to be asked this question wasn't asked. Or I was allowed to remain silent, and I was forced to talk in not a very friendly manner. So it helps to know. Of course, it moving from knowledge to now them acting on it is a different thing. But yeah. Then I think there's also a flaw in the oversight system. IPOA, whom I mentioned IPOA. IPOA is supposed to be the oversight for the police. And mind you, if you read this constitution and look at what the police are supposed to do, and you mentioned it, we moved from National Police Force to National Police Service. What does that tell you? Police officers are supposed to work hand in hand with us. It's supposed to be there. I'm supposed to see a police officer in the streets and feel, wow, I am protected. Isn't that supposed to be the ideal situation? But what do? You start now feeling, guy, you start looking at what have I, yeah? And the police officers, legally speaking, are supposed to be there to protect the citizens. Supposed to be there to ensure that there is law and order so that you and I can coexist, right? We're supposed to work together. But we have changed the name to a service, but the actions are still that of a force. And that is something we must try to interrogate, because maybe it's a culture shift. Unajua hata ukichange jina ya kitu, if the culture is still the same, and I won't pretend to know what kind of training they go through, but I do know they do have a training. They have actually an academy somewhere hapo karibu Ngong, Bulbul. And I would have imagined that when this shift happened, there should have been a culture change where it's like even the citizen engagement with police, as you said, you should be able to enter a police station, you talk about, by the officer, huku kumekuwa na insecurity, tufanye aje. You think as a team because they are there to help your life get better, So I really wish that we can change that culture from force to service. Yeah. And I'm not sure where we'll start. But I think it's a conversation that must be had. And for the oversight, IPOA is meant to be an independent body, right? And I do agree investigations don't take a day. But also, they don't need to take years for us to get answers, and for people to be protected. Yeah. But I want to just say that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think it really needs to take a lot of government will for this to be done properly. Because it's good to hear, like now cases of Willie Kimani, that those police officers were actually convicted, and a few other cases, but the majority of the cases are still in the dark. Yeah. So it will need this art that we are talking about. This advocacy must not stop. It must be. We shouldn't just wait for like a tight finance bill for us to speak. There are so many other injustices that we need to speak about, like continuously, so that there is a wake-up call. There is a wake-up call. But I hope that we can have a platform, and this is a challenge to Peace Tree Network. I saw Martha somewhere. We should have the next conversation with our officers. I would love to be there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, something you've mentioned on the use, how you've seen art and people taking the stage to sort of educate each other. I don't know whether any of you guys must have watched during the protests where a floodgate of influencers took, especially on TikTok, and they were breaking down the constitution using the mother tongue and using relatable anecdotes that people who would have otherwise not interacted with the constitution could understand. Because I don't know if any of you have been in the TikTok streets, but when you go to TikTok, it is, I think, the most varied social media platform that we have, in the sense that it's not completely elitist. We have elitist conversation on TikTok, and then we have educational conversation on TikTok, and then we have just people who want to pass time, people who want to sell commodities, and then there's the tap your screen battalion. You tap. So, and during the protests, we had individuals using those platforms to not only ask people to help them earn money on the platform, but as well as just share what the Constitution means. When it says we the people, what does it mean? When it says when you're caught, the police is supposed to do this, what does it actually mean? And you'd find people remarking in their mother tongues and saying things like, I didn't know that that's what was supposed to happen. So you mean this policeman who comes to collect money from my shop here in the village is doing something wrong, But it's so put into our culture that it becomes something that we have almost just accepted and not questioned. Yeah, so I think, thank you so much. I don't know whether, I think we should take the possibly questions.
Oh, thank you so much. And now that you mentioned TikTok and the influencers and Kikuyus, my mom actually was on TikTok listening to the Kikuyu breakdown of the Constitution, and it moved me because, as you can see, I'm old, so she's very, very old, and she was there listening and paying attention. And I think that was the biggest revolution I've ever seen for a 70-something-year-old listening to TikTok. That moved me. So we are doing something right. I would want to open the floor. The floor. Is there anyone with a particular question? Is there anyone feeling?
My name is Gerard Kamau. I'm from Kayole Community Justice Center. And I'm also an artist. Okay, my question ingekuwa ni when you are arrested, when you go to a police station, they don't yani hawatumii constitution anywhere. They use the penal code. Watu wanajua the penal code? The penal code is a colonial document, and it's still used in our criminal justice system. My question will be, what do we do with the penal code? And again, we should know we are in a capitalist system, and this system, we have the history of the police service, the police force, how it came to be, how it was used by the colonialists to make people obedient to the law. But at this time, what do we need to do to change the capitalist state? Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Gerald. Do we have anyone with a question, comment, feedback before I close the floor? Going once, going twice, gone. So thank you so much. I think, Joy, you are better placed to answer that question. Basically, because I also don't understand the penal code really well.
The penal code. Okay, so let me wacha nifanye, siko TikTok but to assume niko kwa screen ya TikTok. Sawa? So I'm going to do just a very small lesson. So, ini katiba, this constitution, this is highest law in the land. Sawa? Kwa hierarchy iko hapo juu. Now, this constitution is just how many pages? Yay, it's 309 pages. This one of mine, but I'm not saying the actual one has 309. So this one is 309 or has, it's 309 pages. It inaweza kosa kukava kila kitu. So what it has done, inasema that every other act of parliament, zile laws ambazo parliament wanapitisha, zile zinaitangwa act. Sikuna National Police Service Act, gani ingine, hata finance bill ilikuwa hapo. Traffic Act. So those ones are specific to specific issues. Now, a law, as long as that act is not in contravention with the constitution, it forms part of the laws of Kenya. Chatuende sa kwa penal code. Kwa criminal justice system, tunaanzia na katiba, tunaenda kwa penal code. Penal code ni document ambayo inaongelelea which crime, so it describes the crime. Unaona hii yenye maybe umeambiwa let's say murder. Let me use murder. Allow me, yeah? It will describe what is this murder we are talking about. When can you say someone has actually murdered someone? Unaona? So ina give the elements. Kama ni theft. What is theft described? Ukiangalia kwa charge sheet. Nani ashaiona charge sheet kama ni yako ama ya mtu mwingine? You've seen. Si ndio? Hapo kwa page ya charge sheet kuna mahali wana describe, ile wanakusomeanga kotini mnamo wa hii na hii tarehe na hii ulipatikana ukifanya hii na hii. So wanatoanga hiyo phrase kwa penal code wakisema ulipatikana ukiiba contrary to section this of the penal code. Okay, so the penal code is not bad because it describes what crime is there. Now, I agree with you. Some of the sections of the penal code, bado ni za kitambo, they are quite colonial. So it's not that the entire document ni mbaya, ni venye we need to get to a point where such a law should be reviewed. Kuangalia, does this still suffice at this point in time? You know, because working with intent. Intent, utaona hiyo intent aje. You know, some of the, you get what I mean? Some of them are hard to, so some of them need review, kweli. But the penal code itself is not bad. It can save you because, ukienda kotini, what you argue is, penal code inasema stealing ni A, B, C, D. Wewe umenishikia E, F, G. Where do they correlate? You understand? So that's how, in terms of the penal code inasemekana. So no wonder how tumia penal code could describe crime ambayo wanasema mtu amefanya. Yes. But that penal code should have nothing that is contrary to the constitution. Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I think there was also a second part to that question where he's asking how we can shift from a capitalistic state to a whatever state. I wouldn't want to now describe it. Maybe we would want a communist state, a socialist state, and any other state. And while I see that as a concern to many people, I personally don't see capitalism as a very, very big concern to me. Because capitalism in itself might look very bad if it is sold to you to only think as though it is telling people to be inhumane, telling people to be extremely selfish, and telling people not to be concerned about, say, their country, their environment, and everything. And this is because ethically, when a market is free and people have the liberty to choose how to control prices because of demands, then profit can supersede any other factor if that person is not like morally grounded. And so a question here for me is, how then do we change the morals of a people in a society so that they would see the other person as equally important even in their different social classes? How do we encourage people not to see the other person who's made it through their innovation as an enemy? Because at times when we want to call out capitalism or because of its inequality, we want to make that other person who struggled maybe their way out as a bad person. Yet maybe they are not bad people essentially. So I wouldn't be in the conversation of wanting to change capitalism, but I would want to change how people relate with each other, how people see the other person, how people want to move forward. Because one thing we've learned from, say, the Gen Z revolution in Kenya, and somebody might be telling me, what do you mean a revolution? And nothing has changed. But that uprising in itself has taught us a couple of things. One, people can be united to a cause. Yes, and love one another. And nobody asked the other on the streets what tribe you are, from what social class you are, rich or poor. We were all in the street and fighting for a common cause. So even capitalists can look and ask themselves, why am I crippling, say, the health care service because I want to make profits? Why then not encourage the government to invest better, even as I invest on the alternative? Because there will always be people who will choose the alternative. And that is no problem for me. So I would just want to look at it that way and say, for people who want other systems, it is equally good to explore their shortfalls, because all of these systems will have an area where all people don't agree.
Thank you so much. That's very insightful, and you've merged us to.
Sorry, Joyce.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I had already put the mic down. But when I touched this constitution, I remembered an article that I like so much. Two articles. Article 10, which speaks to the national values and principles. And one of them is non-discrimination. And the other one is honesty. But then Article 28 speaks very keenly to what I want us to speak, because that is what exactly police brutality steals from us: human dignity. That we all born inherently with dignity, and that this dignity must be respected and protected. Then whose responsibility is it to respect it and protect it? All of us. So that investor, that common person, that police, that politician must work over and beyond to respect and protect the dignity of a Kenyan person. And if we all endeavor to that, then we'll have a country where everyone enjoys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, but this has been very insightful. And so the question is, what next? Do I pack my bags niende kwa cash crop ya Mawaru, where I come from? Do I start life in a very different country where things don't exist? Or do I live in utopia? Maybe the challenge would be, what do you think we can do as a team, as civil society, as artists, as human rights defenders, as community justice champions? What's our way forward? Do we give up, or do we soldier on? So maybe the last words from you as panelists. I don't know who wants to start. Maxine, because you're right next.
Awesome. What next? What do we do? Tunafanyaje? As someone who was raised in Kayole and specifically niaje? Masimba, Gorofa Saba, hizo area. Those are my home. As someone who was raised in such spaces, if you were to ask me this question when I was in Imara Primary School, I would tell you, me, I want to pack up and leave the country. Or if, I want to leave. I wouldn't want to be in the space that I was in that time, because it has been almost the same over time. But looking at the world and the country that I am in right now, and the position that I am in right now, and the experiences and everything else that I've acquired as time has gone by, we are the people who will change this country. We cannot leave it for anyone else. No one is coming to save us. In fact, people are even coming to destroy us. No one is coming to hold our hand and tell us, Mama, itakuwa sawa, baba, you will be fine. Or if you're gender non-conforming, no one is coming through for us. So it is important that we realize it is our responsibility in every human form that we come in, to ensure that we protect, to ensure that we serve, to ensure that we be there for each other. And I'm going to go back to when I was in the streets of Kisumu during the protests. My phone fell several times, and people kept on bringing it. Maxi, simu yako imeanguka. And I know it doesn't look like a huge example, but that example reminds me every day that if we choose each other and we choose ourselves, we can actually be the change that we want to see. Asanteni sana.
Na mimi ile kitu naweza sema, tuko kwa nchi yetu, hatutahama. Ile kitu iko ni kuendelea kusimama na kutetea haki na kulinda katiba yetu. Pia kitu ingine ni kupeana, create awareness pia huko mashinani mahali tuko. Watu wengi wanajua katiba, lakini waliona tu ni kitabu kubwa. Unapata kijana akiona askari anakimbia mbio ingine sana. Hata akishikwa aulizi umenishikia nini, nimekosa nini. So tukipeana hii awareness na watu kujua rights zao, at least tutasonga. Na tusikumbali kunyamaza, tuongee. Ni hayo.
I didn't know we'll have these closing remarks because I said what I would have said here. But again, I will just say, if you woke up today and you felt there's something you're so good at and that thing can benefit other people, give it to them. And I think that is what would be for me a closing remarks, that we can only shape this country and change it if we are open to sharing insights with others. What you're good at and can be good to other people, please share. And awareness will make all of us look at the country and rebuild it the way we want. Now we already having a conversation of how our politicians are not listening to us, and if we don't fix the leadership problem, we can't fix any other problem. It is that time that we continue asking Kenyans to be active citizens. They look at what is happening and project what they would want to happen, and know that when we get to the ballot in 2027, we are choosing that vision. And so we can't choose it if we are blind to it now. We have to start creating the picture, and that can only be created when we imagine. And imagination can be felt through expression. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have 3 points. Ya kwanza, Kenya ni home. So as my colleagues have said, hakuna mali tunaenda. This is our home. And we must do what we need to do to fix our nation. Yeah? And that was the second one, fixing our nation. And to fix our nation, everyone must do their little thing. I don't know how many of you, and I keep saying this everywhere I go, how many of you have heard about the story of the hummingbird? How many? Hummingbird? I'll give it in 1 second. No, not 1 second. 2, 3 seconds. So, Wangari Maathai was giving a story of the hummingbird. Na akasema, there was a fire in a forest. This forest had all sorts of animals. Hiyo moto iliwaka, a big inferno, and it was consuming all the habitats and destroying everything. So the animals got out to save themselves, got out of the forest, and wakajiangalilia moto ikiwaka. You know? And this little bird, it's called the hummingbird. It has the beak this size. It's like a pinch. It started collecting water and going to the forest fire to put it off. What were the other animals doing? Laughing at it, watching, observing, because for them, Kenya is home. And I'm speaking to people in this room and out of this room. There are those of us who are observers. You just tap, click to see, scroll, doing nothing. And you're waiting for the small hummingbird to use its small beak. What better? And it probably would put off the fire, but much slower. Yet an elephant with a big trunk was looking at the hummingbird. By the way, I said I'm an elephant, but that was not me. That elephant was there. The camel, yani animals wenye zingechota maji ya maana kuzima hiyo moto, were sitting. And of course, the hummingbird took longer to put off the fire. So what are we saying? This mess that we are in, each of us need to do their little thing. What do you have? You're an artist. Go for it. Mimi ni wakili. Let me go for it. You're a business person. Go for it. A communicator. Go for it. What is your little thing? What we don't want is people just being observers. Iyo nayo hakuna. And the last thing, if we put humanity at the center of everything that we do, we will have a peaceful nation. Where everybody just remembers, you're my brother. Yani nakuangalia tu kama a human being before I look at anything else you can offer, anything else you have. Even me looking at that police officer or the police officer looking at me. Humanity at the center of all we do. Then everything will flow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really, really deep. When you were talking about the hummingbird, I remembered a poet who some of you might know, who says, change won't come when our leaders change. Change will come when we change. And I think that's one of the most powerful quotes that I know. And so that has been our time. Thank you so much for being here. You want to be an elephant? If I am an animal, let me share, I would want to be a cockroach. If it counts as an animal, if you've seen a cockroach, it survives the worst case scenarios. Like, I can bet you dollars to donuts, if you open your microwave, you will find a cockroach running at some time. If you look at bomb scenes or something, there has to be a survivor just running across the room. So I think I love its resilience. A cockroach can be found anywhere. So that's my animal. But I would want to hand over to Robin. But before I do, when we were having these conversations, a lot of thoughts were running through my mind. And people ask me why I chose to move from active journalism to human rights. I've been in human rights for 6 years, so that's quite some time. And I think it's when I realized that silence is not an option. Someone has to do something. So I started speaking out. It's been quite a journey. And so I would want to throw that to you. Whatever you do, just know that silence is not an option. You're taking the easy way out. And then the other thing that I live by, and people who know me, is my mantra is, when we become fearless, life becomes limitless. Fear has tied so many of us. So I would want to challenge you, work on your fears, stand up for something, stand up for anything, just stand. So that's my call to action. And then instead of having a to-do list, maybe have a to-be list. Choose to be kind, choose to be in human rights, to choose to speak out, like choose something different. So that has been my time. I would want to hand over back to my host, Robin. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Let's clap for them as they exit stage. Okay.